You have felt it. You stand up from a chair, or you get out of bed in the morning, and for a few seconds the room tilts. Your vision goes dim at the edges, your head feels light and floating, and you have to grab the counter or freeze in place until it passes. Most people shrug it off. They stood up too fast, that is all. But that few seconds of dizziness is not random, and it is not nothing. It is a snapshot of how well your body is managing one of the most basic tasks it performs thousands of times a day. And when it starts failing regularly, it is telling you something worth listening to. I have spent 15 years in clinical practice, and this is one of the most common complaints I hear people dismiss when it is often the easiest to explain and address. Subscribe to Wellgevity and hit like right now. This is Dr. Steven, and every subscribe, like, and comment genuinely helps this information reach the next person who grabbed a wall this morning and wondered why. Let us start with what is actually happening in those few seconds, because once you understand it, the whole thing makes sense. When you are lying down or sitting, a large amount of your blood is pooled in the lower half of your body. The moment you stand, gravity pulls roughly a cup or more of blood down into your legs and abdomen almost instantly. For a brief window, less blood is returning to your heart, which means less blood is being pumped up to your brain. Your brain is extremely sensitive to any drop in its blood supply, and that momentary shortfall is exactly what you feel as lightheadedness. In a healthy system, your body corrects this in under a second. Sensors in your arteries called baroreceptors detect the pressure drop the instant you stand, and they fire a signal that tightens your blood vessels and speeds up your heart just enough to push blood back up to your brain before you ever notice. When that reflex is fast and strong, you stand up and feel nothing. When it is slow or weak, you get the dizzy spell. The medical name for the pressure drop itself is orthostatic hypotension, and how often it happens and how severe it is tells you a lot about what is going on underneath. Here is a pattern that comes up constantly, and it captures most of the everyday cases. Picture someone in their late 50s, we can call him David, who has started getting dizzy every morning when he stands up from bed, bad enough that he once had to sit back down. A closer look at his routine turns up three things that almost always cluster together in these cases. First, he barely drinks any water until his afternoon coffee, so he wakes up mildly dehydrated, which lowers blood volume. Second, he takes a blood pressure medication in the evening, and its effect is still strong in the early morning. Third, he goes from fully flat to fully upright in one fast motion the second his alarm goes off. In cases built this way, the fix is rarely dramatic. Hydrating earlier, sitting on the edge of the bed for 30 seconds before standing, and having a conversation with the prescribing doctor about medication timing often reduces the episodes substantially. So, what are the actual drivers behind this? The things that turn an occasional harmless head rush into a regular event. The first and most common is simple dehydration. Your blood is mostly water, and when you are even mildly underhydrated, your total blood volume drops, which means there is less to work with when gravity pulls it downward. This is why the dizziness is so often worst first thing in the morning, after a full night with no fluids. The second driver is medication, and this one is enormously underappreciated. A whole range of common drugs can blunt the reflex that protects you when you stand. Blood pressure medications are the obvious ones, since their entire job is to lower pressure, but diuretics, certain prostate medications, some antidepressants, and drugs for Parkinson's can all contribute. If your dizziness started or worsened after beginning a new medication, that timing is a clue worth bringing directly to your doctor, not something to adjust on your own. The third driver is the natural aging of the reflex itself. As we get older, the baroreceptors become a little less sensitive, and blood vessels a little less springy, so the correction that used to happen instantly now happens a half-second slower. That half-second is the difference between feeling nothing and feeling the room tilt. This is why orthostatic dizziness becomes more common with age, even in people who are otherwise healthy. And it is also why the simple mechanical habits, like standing up in stages, make such a noticeable difference for older adults. Now, an important myth to clear up. Many people believe dizziness on standing always means low blood pressure, so they assume their pressure must be fine if a reading at the doctor's office came back normal or even high. But orthostatic hypotension is specifically about the drop that happens in the transition from sitting or lying to standing, and a single seated reading in a clinic will completely miss it. Plenty of people with high baseline blood pressure still get significant drops when they stand. The only way to actually catch it is to measure pressure lying down, and then again shortly after standing, which is a simple test your doctor can do in minutes if you ask. I do need to be clear about when this crosses from a common nuisance into something that needs prompt attention. If the dizziness comes with actual fainting, with chest pain, with a racing or irregular heartbeat, with slurred speech or weakness on one side of the body, or if it is severe and came on suddenly without an obvious cause, that is not a stand-up slowly situation. That combination needs urgent medical evaluation because it can point to a heart rhythm problem or something neurological rather than a simple blood pressure dip. Ordinary orthostatic dizziness is brief, mild, and resolves within a few seconds of standing still. Anything beyond that deserves a real look. Here is the 5-step plan worth starting today. First, stand up in stages. When you wake, sit on the edge of the bed for 30 seconds. Let your legs hang, then stand, and pause another moment before you start walking. This alone resolves a surprising number of cases. Second, front-load your hydration. Drink a glass of water when you wake up rather than waiting until midday, since morning is when blood volume is lowest. Third, if you take any regular medication, especially for blood pressure, bring up the dizziness specifically at your next appointment and ask whether the type or the timing could be contributing. Fourth, if you have been told your blood pressure runs low, ask your doctor whether modestly increasing your salt and fluid intake is appropriate for you, since for some people it genuinely helps, though this is exactly the kind of thing to confirm rather than assume. Fifth, if the episodes are frequent, keep a short log of when they happen and what you are doing, since that pattern is far more useful to a doctor than a vague description. Your body performing this blood pressure correction thousands of times a day without you noticing is a quiet marvel, and the occasional stumble in that system is usually easy to understand and easy to smooth out. The point is not to panic every time your head swims for a second. It is to know the difference between the ordinary version and the version that is trying to flag something bigger. I'm Dr. Stephen with Wellgevity, and if this helped make sense of something you have felt 100 times and never questioned, subscribe to Wellgevity and hit like. Your support is genuinely what gets this information in front of the next person who freezes against a wall, waiting for the room to settle. And tell me your age in the comments. It genuinely shapes which topics I cover next for the people actually watching Wellgevity.